Am I going crazy here? I feel like I've been playing a different game than some people. I've been seeing comparisons of the Battlefield 6 beta to Call of Duty, people saying that the maps we're getting are too cramped, there's just lanes that force you to play in only 1, 2, or 3 different areas, the movement is way too fast, there's no verticality, and the gunplay wasn't what they were expecting. When I read or listen to these comments, I think two things. First, did you play Battlefield 3 or 4? And second, have you played Call of Duty recently? Well, for the sake of informed commentary, I did what no sane person should ever do. I installed Call of Duty Black Ops 6, and I had to sacrifice Jurassic World Evolution 2 for disk space to do it. So don't tell my son. We'll have to continue our dinosaur park next week. But I did it because Battlefield 6 didn't feel like what I remembered Call of Duty feeling like, and it felt pretty much in line with how the older Battlefields were. When you add in the map design and infantry combat as well, I thought that the Battlefield 6 beta played almost exactly like a modernized Battlefield 3. In fact, David Sirlin, Battlefield's lead producer, said this in response to complaints about map size. Speed is a factor of map size. We picked these maps to make sure we hit the full octane version of Battlefield on the head, and made everyone see we can handle that too. Large maps exist and the tempo scales accordingly, you'll be able to see soon enough. To me, Battlefield is large-scale combat. Big maps with vehicles and infantry, combined arms pushes, jets, helicopters, all that type of stuff. But what makes Battlefield feel like Battlefield is fun and engaging infantry combat. The games that we're nostalgic for, Battlefield 3 and 4, were so good because the infantry foundation was fun. Yeah, we might not have had crouch sliding or combat rolling out of windows, but the gunplay was still snappy and very fast-paced. But what's unique about Battlefield's gunplay is that it also allows you to have these really satisfying meat grinder type moments like Operation Metro. Personally, I believe that the games back in the day were fun because the devs made sure that the close quarters infantry gameplay was solid. And then they expanded the maps, added in the vehicles, and gave us a bit more room to breathe. With a good, fun infantry base, the devs can add in things like tanks and IFVs, your helicopters, your jets, all that other stuff. In a game with 64 players, there's only going to be a handful of vehicles aside, so you need to make sure that the gameplay for 95% of people in that server is fun and satisfying. That means that long range, medium range, and close quarters infantry firefights have to be good. And some of these maps, even though they're giant, have very close quarters objectives that force you back into this infantry grind CQB mindset. But despite a lot of my favorite moments of Battlefield being these large wide open maps, the vast majority of game modes in Battlefield 3 and 4 were actually either infantry only or just infantry heavy. In addition to Rush and Conquest, we also had Domination, Team Deathmatch, and Squad Deathmatch, which were all infantry only. I didn't play this too much, but there was a mode called Scavenger, which was like TDM, but you just had to run around and constantly rearm and pick up weapons, and although it wasn't super popular, I remember playing Capture the Flag servers back in the day too. You also had the Diffuse game mode, which was like Call of Duty Search and Destroy, and another forgotten mode is called Chain Link, which was an infantry-only conquest small type mode where you had to link together points in order to bleed the enemy's tickets dry. And if you were to download and boot up Battlefield 4 right now, you'll also find full servers of the gun game mode called Gunmaster. I jumped in this morning, played, and it still holds up. It's super fun, and the community is very active. Now, I'm not saying that we didn't have modes like Conquest with vehicles or Conquest Large, tank superiority, or air superiority, and frankly, I preferred playing these larger scale games, but what I am trying to say is that fun and engaging infantry combat is and always has been the core to a good Battlefield game. This might be a controversial opinion here, but the reason I liked the older Battlefield games was because of what the combat represented, not necessarily the actual combat. And when I say older games, I mean like the originals. I'm nostalgic for those original games because of the unique gameplay it provided. Battlefield 1942 had tanks, planes, ships. I'm sure if you ever played Wake Island, you could remember that one dude who would grab the carrier and then sail it into the corner of the map. I had more fun joining communities that would pit Axis versus allies, and we'd just play campaigns over every map in Battlefield. Battlefield 1942 was fun, but the infantry combat was extremely basic. It took the devs a few years to really nail down that infantry gameplay loop in a way that could really compare to Call of Duty. Now, I don't want to get into a Battlefield versus Call of Duty debate here, but Call of Duty has been the gold standard of first-person shooter movement and gunplay for decades now, whether or not you want to admit it. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 came out in 2009, and I know that all my Battlefield buddies played it, but we still played Battlefield. Admittingly though, Modern Warfare 2 was mind-blowing. DICE released Bad Company 2 a year later in 2010, and then Battlefield 3 in 2011. Talk to any longtime Battlefield fan, and their favorite game is probably going to be after Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. That's Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, or Battlefield 4. Looking back at it, I think DICE really showed with Battlefield 3 that the Battlefield series could be a serious contender when it came to first-person shooter gameplay, instead of just large-scale vehicle combat. Now jump forward to today in Battlefield 6, people have been complaining that the gameplay is fast-paced, but if we take off our nostalgia goggles and go back and watch old Battlefield 3 gameplay, the infantry combat is actually very similar. Many of the smaller maps have this same vibe as Cairo and Iberian, with big pushes down narrow streets, support players holding a line, while assaults charge into gunfire, and then recons off on the back taking pot shots. The similarity in gameplay between 3 and 4 and Battlefield 6 is why a lot of the players who did play these games were instantly in love with Battlefield 6. Yeah, we might not be able to keep up with it at times because goddammit, I'm now 15 years older, but I felt like I was right back there playing St. Crossing, No Shark Canals, or Pearl Market. Newer Battlefield fans could maybe even compare some of this gameplay to maps like what we had in Battlefield 1 with Fort de Vaux. Now, what I'm trying to get at here is that Battlefield has always been very fast-paced when it comes to infantry gameplay, and if you think that these quick flick shots you're seeing on social media are unique to modern gaming, well, you're wrong. Battlefield 3 had plenty of aimers, and although we couldn't slide, you still had people trying to abuse movement mechanics to their advantage. These types of things have always been in game, and I would argue that Battlefield took what we had a decade ago and has refined it in Battlefield 6 today. But more importantly, not only is Battlefield 6 really reinforcing the type of gameplay we had 10 to 15 years ago, Battlefield 6 really does not feel like Call of Duty. And I'm not just saying that. I put my money where my mouth is. I bought Xbox Game Pass and I downloaded the game and I jumped into a couple multiplayer matches of Black Ops 6. If you have not played Call of Duty recently, then wow, night and day difference from both the movement and the gunplay to Battlefield. After an hour or so of playing, I think that Call of Duty feels very light. I think light is a good way to put it. It doesn't really feel like you have any real weight when you move around. The jumps are floaty and the slides slide. Like you're really sliding around like you're on an ice rink or something. You're also in combat within seconds. Compared to Battlefield, you can either choose to go straight into combat or take it a bit slower even on these smaller maps and flank around, find a little corner, or go on top of a second floor window. Yeah, I will agree that there are moments on Cairo or Iberian where it feels like you can't catch your breath, but you can play it slower if you choose to. That is literally impossible on Call of Duty. There are only 12 players on this map, and it is non-stop action. These maps are usually one or two main landmarks, and that is it. I played on one that was just a house and one that was just a gas station. You have very limited play areas, you're forced down one or two main routes with crossfire everywhere. It's a very specific type of fast-paced gameplay forced onto you by fast-paced close quarters maps. If you were to overlay these maps onto the smallest map we played in the first playtest, which is Iberian, there's almost no comparison. I think I'm being generous here on the size overlays, but yeah, you could probably fit 5 or 6 Call of Duty maps inside Iberian because the scale is just fundamentally different. And to help reinforce that, do you know what a long shot is in Call of Duty? Well, a long shot in Call of Duty is 50 meters. Yeah, I got a long shot award for killing someone 50 meters away from me in Call of Duty. Now, once again, I don't want to make this whole thing Call of Duty is horrible, Battlefield is better. I don't really care. Both games have their place, obviously, but Battlefield really feels nothing like Call of Duty. The maps are far larger and the player movement is actually far slower in Battlefield. And that's even for a Battlefield game. SMK Gaming crunched the numbers and Battlefield 6's base movement speed is actually the slowest in the series. It's last with your weapon equipped, and if you're running around with your knife, it's only 4th fastest. Battlefield 6's more advanced movement like sliding, vaulting, the rolling when you land out of a window, and flick shotting combined with higher fields of views are probably making the game look way faster than it really is. If you just look at the data, Battlefield 6 is right in line with what most consider to be the peak of the Battlefield franchise. Seeing these numbers is so important for me because although I'm a vehicle main, I can appreciate good, fluid, and fun infantry combat. In the beta so far, we've seen that the devs are really focusing on this close quarter chaos, and I honestly think it's working, but I do believe that people are getting fatigued during the beta. I personally put 25 hours into the beta over 3 days, and I know there are other people who put in 30, 40, or 50 hours. That's a lot of hours spent on only 3 maps. If I'm playing Battlefield normally, I can only really go 1 or 2 infantry heavy maps in a row before I back out and find a Conquest large map. I know some people are wired in a way that they can just go play Locker or Metro 24/7, and great, good for you, but that's not me. I can appreciate it every once in a while, but I'm someone who thinks that Liberation Peak was the best map on the beta, and I also think Conquest is the far superior mode to break through. As we wait for the open beta 2, I don't think I'm actually concerned about Battlefield's verticality or the movement speed or the infantry gameplay or anything like that, because we have been teased Firestorm. If you've never played Firestorm, or maybe you forgot how it looked like, this map has a lot of vehicles. There's 4 tanks on the side, there's anti-air vehicles, there's 2 jets, there's 2 helicopters, and even a few jeeps. From the teaser trailer with the jets flying by, it looks like the scale of Firestorm is still the same in Battlefield 6 as it was in 3 and 4. Furthermore, we also got a sneak peek of New Sobek City. From this small clip, Sobek is most likely going to have a similar vehicle layout. You have a tank or 2, maybe some IFVs, 2 helicopters, and hopefully jets. And finally, we also have Mirak Valley, which is described as a prime destination for all-out war and the largest map at launch. If this map is larger than Firestorm, then maybe it will be comparable to something like Caspian Border or Karg Island. I think it's completely reasonable to be concerned about fast-paced infantry gameplay, the maps not having that verticality, or maybe it feeling a little too close quarters and chaotic at times, but there are countless Battlefield maps that all feel exactly like Cairo and Iberian. The biggest difference is, for games like Battlefield 3 and 4, we have breaks to stretch our legs and then go play on these larger maps to kind of cleanse our palate of this close quarters infantry meat grinder. But once again, guys, this is a beta. I can see where the devs are coming from here. They can't get proper infantry balance testing without throwing us into this meat grinder. Yeah, it gets a bit mind-numbing. I'd rather play in Liberation Peak 24/7, but I'm okay with all of this if it helps get that good infantry gameplay loop foundation that every successful Battlefield has had. At the end of the day, Battlefield 6 is beta so far, the devs' official communication, and all the comments and replies I've been seeing on social media has given me the confidence that we are truly getting the Battlefield sequel that we've been waiting on for over a decade. Just because the beta maps don't have that verticality or scale you want right now, doesn't mean we're not going to get maps with those on release. And this isn't me just making it up. You can literally go to the Battlefield website, see the maps, see the descriptions, and then go to a Wikipedia page and compare them for yourselves. At least for launch, I think we're going to have a pretty decent variety. Well, what do you guys think? Am I just huffing hopium here? Do you see the vision with the infantry combat as well? Are you liking the beta, but maybe you're just still not sold? What are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Well, that's it for me. Until next time, peace.